now that we have our LARATRUST set up and we have our scaffolding pretty much in place, and today I want to go ahead and start working on our permissions table. In the zip file that I left for you guys down in the description down below, if you open it up in a file explorer and you go to the pages, tables, simple HTML, you can see the ones that I was looking at to use. And this is pretty much just examples of what we can do. And I was thinking we can do a responsive hover table, and then we'll add our buttons in to do all of the actions that we'll need to handle our CRUD. So that's something that you already have access to. Now, before we are able to pull any of that in, we do need something to be able to view this. So I'm going to open up the terminal. What I want to do is make a route and a controller. I'm just going to go ahead and call it permission controller. I want it resourceful, and we don't need a migration or anything because that's already been taken care of by the LARATRUST package. We also don't need a model because that also was taken care of by the LARATRUST package. So I'm just going to go ahead, press enter. Let's make sure it was put in the right spot. We're good there. So we have our permission controller here. Let's first create the route before I forget. I'm just going to put it under here for right now. This one is going to be a get route. We're going to have a prefix of admin, and it's just to a general permissions route. Now, as you can see here, my editor is showing that there are two different permissions controller. If you remember in the previous video, I was mentioning that the LARATRUST package has its own panel where it leverages its own controllers and stuff. That's why it's a good reason to name our stuff the opposite of whatever it is. So if theirs is permissions, then we'll name ours permission. That's just a helpful tip to know. For this, it's just going to be the index. For the name, it'll be admin permissions index. Let me make some space here. And that should be good. It has been imported up top. We'll go to that permission controller. And then here we'll just return inertia render. And it'll be admin. I think it's admin. I'll check in a bit. Permissions index. Go to resources, JS, pages, admin. Let's save that. We'll create a folder. Index.view. Just so that we can have something to see on the page. Well, we don't have a route to it yet or a link to it, which will change in a moment, but for now, I just want to go to permissions. Okay, good. So our page is coming through just fine. Let's go ahead and make a link from this sidebar. We'll create the new link here, and we'll have it going to that permissions page. Let's go ahead and open up the sidebar component. And it should be here for now. Well, actually for good, we can change that. And here I'm going to put permissions. Which means that here we can change this to link. And 2, it'll be route admin permissions index. Let's just make sure link is imported up top, which it's not. Let's go and see if we have our link. Okay, there it is right there, and it has taken us to our permissions index. I want to put the layout in here so that we have access to all of that. Okay, let's go back to our permissions index. We'll import it first up here. get rid of, well, actually, I'll do admin layout. Cool. The title will be just permissions. Then here we need to replace this and we need our templates. So this one is going to be header. This one's just going to be content. So why don't we grab the header from this one? It should be the same. Instead of dashboard, it'll be permissions. What I didn't notice was that this also says permissions down here. So let me get rid of that. Save it. Okay, good. So we have this here. Now we need to pull in that table that we need to grab from our downloaded folder. Now, as I showed you the tables before, we're using the same logic. So we're going to go to that AdminLTE folder. We're going to go to the pages folder, and then we're going to go to the tables folder right down to this simple.html. And this is where all of those tables are being shown on that page. So we just need to grab the one that we need, which is the responsive hover table. I'm just going to go ahead and grab everything from in here. And now in here, we can just go ahead, paste it in, straighten that out a bit, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, not bad. We have a little bit of a title here. We can get rid of this search in here. I don't know if I'm going to add search to this yet. It depends really on how I'm feeling once we get towards the end, but I'm going to remove this one from here for now. And if I do search, it'll probably be something up here. I don't know. We'll see. But we can go ahead and replace all this information, and we can also bring in our buttons. Let's start first with bringing in the actual permissions. Let's go to the controller. That's the wrong one. Permissions equals permission. For now, I'm going to put all. I'm going to change this up a little bit later, but for right now, that's just what I want it to be. Permissions for us is just going to be an array. And here I don't really need this, but the one thing that I did want to do is in the permissions controller. I forgot that we are using the root view of admin. Before I forget to do that, I do want to make sure that that's clear here. In the define permissions, define props, we have permissions array. Good. We can change this to permissions table. This search, I'm going to keep this here and just write create because we are going to have a create button there. Let's see what we can change from here. Well, the first thing we can change is this user here. I just wanted to say name. I want it to say display name. Here I want to be description. And here I just want it to say created. I also want one more that just says actions, and this will be where our buttons go, our update, delete buttons. Okay, so that's everything for our head. This stuff we can get rid of because this is just dummy data. Now that we also have permissions coming in, we can just go ahead and loop over the current ones that we have. We can do item, index in permissions. This one will be item ID. This one will be name. This one will be display underscore name. This one will be description. Created at, and then for now we'll just put buttons in here. We'll say edit button. Well, actually, let's just go ahead and make these buttons. Button. Delete. Okay, let's go and see what we have. Just going to go ahead and refresh that. Okay, good. We have our permissions in here, and we're only seeing 6, which is true. That's all that we have, which is the create, read, update, users, and profile. Those are the only 6 permissions that we had. We didn't create anything else. Absolutely fine. But we do have a nice little display name, description name, and then we also have the created at date and time. This is the timestamp for it. Cool. Now, there are just 2 more things that I do want to do in here for today. And that is, for this, I want to line it up on the right-hand side. And then I also want to make these into actual Bootstrap buttons. So let's go ahead and take care of that. And we can also create this button as well. So for the alignment, all we need to do is where this TD is for these buttons, we can just do a class text, right? And I'm going to copy this one, and then we can do the same thing for this actions here, just to make it aligned right. Now, in terms of the classes for the buttons, we can do class equals button, button, success. And then for the delete button, it'll be button danger. And I'm also going to want to give it a little bit of left margin on this, just so that the buttons aren't pressed up right against each other. And let's go and do what we need to do for this button here. Now for this, we're not going to need this input group. We just need a button with a type of button. Let's put a class on it. Button primary seems appropriate. It'll be a blue button, and then we'll just say create. Okay, cool. So we have an edit button, a delete button, create, and something we can also do is deal with the time. Now, we're not going to do anything too fancy with this. What I want to do is just use the model to change the date that comes out of here. So let's go ahead and do that. That's the last thing we're going to do for today. So let's go ahead to that permission model. To be honest, the easiest way to do this is just to use Laravel's cast helpers. It's PHP. It's just a helpful tool that we can use in order to sort of just redefine this created at. The reason I do it this way and I don't do this on the front end in JavaScript is, why use JavaScript if you don't have to? There's no interactivity that we're going to need with it that's immediate, or any sort of reactivity for it. So might as well just use the cast and just have it come straight through the DOM to the front end, and then we'll just display it, right? So our created at has date time on it, and then we're doing the date, the month, and the year. We're just going to keep it super simple. Now, if we come here and we refresh, you can see we have a nice smaller just sort of date. It's a lot more user-friendly, a lot more readable, and it is looking pretty good so far. If you're enjoying the content, please go ahead and click that like button, as it really does help out the channel. Here's a video YouTube thinks you'll like, and here's a playlist to follow along. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.